Now, this story concern is growing in many quarters over the slow rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine. The pace will have to increase significantly if government is to meet its target of 1.5 million inoculations by the end of next month. Attempts over the last few days to get the health department to comment on air have so far proved fruitless. What are the delays and what will the timeline look like for reaching 67% of the population vaccination for population immunity, otherwise also known as herd immunity? Let's talk to epidemiologist Dr. Jo Barnes from Stellenbosch University. Dr. Barnes, good afternoon. Welcome to this lunchtime here on eNCA. I mean, to say that concern is growing in many quarters on the slow rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine could sound like an understatement today, because for the last few weeks, various sectors, some scientists and like yourselves, and also business and other parts of the country have been saying it's too slow, it's too slow.
Good afternoon. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that you are entirely and completely right. There are three things that are going to tell us the big success of preventing, for instance, or mitigating a third wave, which is, as you've mentioned, the pace of vaccinations and the extent to which this virus presents us with new variants. But the third and the most important thing in my mind is the willingness of the community, of the population, to follow the prescribed ordinary precautions. And if they are starting to feel that the government is not playing open cards with them, then that cooperation is going to get worse and worse. If you tightly control information and you tightly control the process, then you also own the mistakes.
Yeah, up to now... Yeah, sorry, Dr. Barnes, to cut in there. Up to now, the way the process is set up, from what I understand, it's a centralized process with government procuring the vaccines and then distributing them in the designated centers across the country. But now there are voices that are calling for a decentralization. And business, for example, saying they should be allowed to secure their vaccines on their own. And just yesterday, on this lunchtime on eNCA, we reported exclusively about a meeting last week, Monday, between the South African National Defence Force and the Chinese Embassy, where our Defence Force now is looking for vaccines from China because the health workers in the military have not been covered by the current phase.
I cannot understand what gain there is for a total control, centralized, and then giving out the vaccines only to groups or people that you approve of. That sounds like a very large gap for unfairness to creep in, and I do not think there's any reason why, public health-wise, why other groups of people, private enterprise, cannot obtain vaccines for themselves. Nobody is going to stand in 5 queues and get 5 vaccines. So once you get it through somewhere, you at least are helped. Again, when I said owning the process, that is the obsession really that we have in this country in wide circles, not just this one, that the state must control everything. And the state can do that if it has the ability to produce the goods, but it clearly isn't.
Yeah, now to achieve that 40 million inoculated South Africans by the end of the year, at this rate, seems like it's going to be a long stretch target to meet. Yeah. And I've seen reports elsewhere earlier, some people suggesting in the business world, actually, we are able as a country, if we did it in a decentralized fashion, to inoculate about 10 million people a month, because the longer we take to vaccinate, to reach our population immunity of 67%, the more risk we are going to be, the more exposure we have to the coronavirus. And as you've said earlier, Dr. Barnes, to possibly new variants like we're seeing in places like Brazil, and we already have one here.
I'm afraid, I am really afraid is the word that I would like to use, that this vaccination is seen as a gift that the government can bestow on our people, and that they can then gain extra glory from doing that, instead of realizing that the longer they wait, the wait costs lives.
Yeah, the president the other day calling for South Africans to be patient. Would you share that sentiment of patience?
Well, it's all very well and good for you to be patient, but if you die on the way, then that's not really going to help you any. So I honestly think that it's no good asking us to be patient if they're playing with our health and our lives.
Yeah. Besides the volumes or the numbers of people you should be able to vaccinate very quickly, it's important that this is done speedily. I mean, we're heading into Easter weekend shortly, and there are concerns already that have been expressed by scientists like yourselves. And then, of course, we've got the winter season that's almost upon us, and we know what influenza can do as well. It can also damage a lot of us.
Winter and the Easter break, both of them cause people to gather in large groups, and in winter people huddle together inside their homes and inside buildings, which means that the virus is that much more easy to jump from person to person. So this is a high-risk period that we are entering. And for the slow rollout and no information, South African population is getting impatient. And I honestly feel that this should be handled a lot better. And just keeping bad news from South Africa is not the way to get the population on your side.
Yeah, would you say finally, Dr. Barnes, that the frustration that one is sensing every time we speak about this by South Africans about the slow rollout is understandable?
Bad news doesn't go away just because you refuse to face it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jo Barnes from Stellenbosch University this lunchtime. Now.